Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to welcome you to today's presentation. Today, we'll be exploring the fascinating world of Freemasonry around the globe. Our focus will be on different traditions and practices, and the mysticism that surrounds Masonry. We'll take a journey through its rich history, diverse rituals, and the spiritual essence that unites Masons worldwide. So, let's get started and discover the secrets and stories behind this ancient brotherhood. Today, we'll start by exploring the contents of our presentation. We'll begin with an introduction to Freemasonry, giving you a solid overview of what this ancient fraternity is all about. Then, we'll delve into Masonic traditions by region, highlighting how customs and practices vary around the world. For example, we'll look at Masonic customs in the United Kingdom, known for its historic lodges and rituals. Moving to the Americas, we'll see how Freemasonry has evolved differently across countries there. In Asia, we'll uncover unique traditions that reflect local cultures and influences. We'll also examine Masonic customs in Africa, where the practice continues to grow and adapt. Next, we'll discuss the role of women in Freemasonry, which is a fascinating and often debated aspect of the fraternity. We'll explore the mystical side of Masonry, shedding light on its esoteric teachings and spiritual symbolism. Then, we'll compare exoteric perspectives, those that are outwardly visible, across different regions and cultures, to understand how Freemasonry is perceived globally. Finally, we'll wrap up with a conclusion that ties everything together, emphasizing the shared values and diverse expressions of Freemasonry around the world. Throughout this journey, we'll see how these various elements connect to give us a comprehensive view of this intriguing and multifaceted organization. Let's take a look at the contents of today's presentation. First, we'll start with an introduction to Freemasonry, exploring its origins and fundamental principles. Then, we'll move on to examine Masonic traditions by region, which will help us understand how these customs vary around the world. Specifically, we'll look at Masonic customs in the United Kingdom, highlighting their historical roots and unique practices. Next, we'll explore Masonic practices in the Americas, noting how cultural influences shape these traditions. We'll then turn our attention to Masonic traditions in Asia, revealing some intriguing differences and similarities. After that, we'll discuss Masonic customs in Africa, considering how local cultures influence Freemasonry there. We'll also dedicate a section to the role of women in Freemasonry, an area often surrounded by curiosity and evolving traditions. Moving forward, we'll delve into the mysticism of Masonry, exploring its symbolic and spiritual aspects. Then, we'll compare exoteric perspectives, looking at how different cultures and societies interpret Masonry outwardly. Finally, we'll wrap up with a conclusion that ties all these elements together, emphasizing the global and diverse nature of Freemasonry. Throughout this presentation, I hope to shed light on how this ancient fraternity continues to adapt and thrive across different regions and cultures. Let's take a closer look at the overview of Freemasonry. Essentially, it is a fraternal organization that emphasizes moral and ethical development. You'll notice that rituals, symbols, and a strong commitment to community service and personal growth are core elements of what we do. To give a clear definition, Freemasonry started back in the late 1500s to early 1600s. Originally, it was a guild of stonemasons, and over time, it evolved into a broader fraternal organization. Today, it promotes moral and ethical values across many different cultures around the world. Looking at the historical background, Freemasonry stands for brotherhood, moral integrity, and charitable work. It's also about the pursuit of knowledge and personal development. This spiritual journey we undertake encourages us to grow personally and live ethically, all while being part of a global community. Finally, when we talk about core beliefs and values, the key points are brotherhood, integrity, charity, and the pursuit of knowledge. These principles help us foster a sense of unity and purpose, connecting individual growth with the betterment of society. This overview ties into the larger theme of how Freemasonry encourages ethical living and community service as vital parts of personal development. Let's start by looking at the purpose of this presentation. We want to explore how Freemasonry, as a global organization, varies across different cultures. Freemasonry is a fraternal organization that incorporates a wide range of rituals and traditions. These can differ significantly from one country to another, reflecting the unique cultural influences of each region. Despite these differences, Freemasonry consistently emphasizes core values like moral integrity, community service, and personal development. Next, we'll delve into how mysticism plays a role within Masonry. The organization intertwines symbolism, ritual, and philosophical ideas to foster personal growth. Many of these symbols and traditions have mystical elements that help members explore and deepen their spiritual understanding. This mystical aspect, while diverse worldwide, serves to enhance a member's spiritual journey within a broad, inclusive global context. Finally, we'll compare the different perspectives on Freemasonry around the world. The organization integrates ancient rituals and symbols that promote moral development and personal growth through esoteric teachings. However, the way these teachings are practiced and interpreted can vary greatly depending on cultural influences. This diversity enriches the global Masonic experience, showing how universal principles can adapt to local traditions. Throughout this presentation, we see how Freemasonry's core ideals are shared worldwide, yet expressed uniquely in each cultural setting. Let's take a closer look at the contents of this presentation. First, we'll start with an introduction to Freemasonry, exploring its origins and core principles. Then, we'll delve into Masonic traditions by region, highlighting the diversity across different parts of the world. Moving on, we'll examine Masonic customs in the United Kingdom, where the modern fraternity has significant historical roots. Next, we'll explore practices in the Americas, showcasing how Freemasonry developed and adapted in that context. We'll also look at traditions in Asia, revealing unique cultural influences. Following that, we'll consider Masonic customs in Africa, emphasizing regional variations. An important aspect of our discussion is the role of women in Freemasonry, which has evolved over time and varies across different regions. We will then explore the mysticism of Masonry, uncovering its symbolic and spiritual dimensions. After that, we'll compare exoteric perspectives, analyzing how different cultures and societies perceive Freemasonry outwardly. Finally, we'll conclude by tying all these elements together, emphasizing the global and cultural richness of Freemasonry and its significance in our broader understanding of secret traditions and societal bonds. Let's explore how early settlers in North America influenced Freemasonry. They blended European Masonic traditions with indigenous practices, which led to the development of unique rituals and community values. This blending helped shape the distinct identity of Freemasonry in the region. Moving on to the rituals themselves, North American Freemasonry features special ceremonies like the Master Mason degree. They also incorporate local symbols into their practices, which highlights the importance they place on community and charity within their lodges. These practices make North American Freemasonry quite unique compared to other regions. Finally, it's important to recognize the broader impact Freemasonry has had on society here. It promotes community service, encourages ethical behavior, and fosters civic engagement. All of these efforts contribute significantly to shaping societal values and making local communities stronger and more connected. So, in essence, the influence of early settlers, the unique rituals, and the societal impact all come together to define the vibrant and meaningful role that Freemasonry plays in North America today. Europe has a rich and complex history when it comes to Freemasonry. Its roots go back to medieval guilds and the ideals of the Enlightenment, which helped shape social and political reforms across many nations. This historical background has contributed to a vibrant mosaic of regional traditions that continue to influence Freemasonry today. When we look at different countries in Europe, you'll notice a lot of variation. Each nation has developed its own unique traditions, rituals, and symbols that reflect local culture and history. For example, the practices in France, England, and Germany each have their distinct characteristics, showcasing how Freemasonry adapts to regional identities while maintaining core values. In modern times, European Freemasonry has evolved to align with contemporary values. There's a strong emphasis now on inclusivity and secularism, making it more accessible to diverse groups. Additionally, humanitarian efforts have become a key part of Freemasonry's mission, demonstrating its ongoing relevance within the social fabric of Europe. All these elements, historical roots, regional variations, and modern adaptations, highlight how Freemasonry in Europe continues to grow and adapt, reflecting the region's diverse cultural landscape and its enduring influence on social and political progress. Now, let's take a look at the contents of this presentation. We'll start with an introduction to Freemasonry, exploring its origins and fundamental principles. Then, we'll move on to Masonic traditions by region, highlighting how different parts of the world have their unique customs and practices. Next, we'll delve into Masonic customs in the United Kingdom, which is often seen as the birthplace of modern Freemasonry. After that, we'll examine Masonic practices in the Americas, where the traditions have evolved in diverse cultural contexts. We'll also look at Masonic traditions in Asia, where historical influences and local customs shape the way Freemasonry is practiced. Moving on, we'll explore Masonic customs in Africa, considering the continent's rich cultural diversity. An important part of the presentation is understanding the role of women in Freemasonry, a topic that has seen significant development and debate over the years. We'll then explore the mysticism of Masonry, uncovering the spiritual and esoteric aspects that many members find meaningful. Following that, we'll compare exoteric perspectives, how Freemasonry is viewed from the outside versus the esoteric, or inner, understanding members have. Finally, we'll wrap up with a conclusion that ties all these elements together, emphasizing the universal themes and regional differences that make Freemasonry such a fascinating tradition. Let's take a look at the traditions of English Freemasonry, focusing on its structure and governance, rituals and symbols, and social contributions. English Freemasonry is primarily governed by the United Grand Lodge of England. This organization oversees all the lodges across the country, ensuring that traditions are maintained and that rituals are followed consistently. This governance helps promote unity and a sense of regularity within the fraternity, which is essential for its strength and continuity. When it comes to rituals, the UK places a strong emphasis on symbolic acts that represent initiation, brotherhood, and moral values. Freemasons use tools like the square and compass, which are not just physical objects, but powerful symbols that convey philosophical teachings and ethical principles. These rituals serve to reinforce the moral lessons and brotherly bonds that are core to Freemasonry. Finally, social contributions are a vital aspect of English Freemasonry. Lodges actively promote philanthropy through charitable donations, community service, and supporting local initiatives. These efforts help to strengthen social bonds, enhance community welfare, and demonstrate the fraternity's commitment to making a positive impact beyond their internal traditions. Overall, these elements, governance, rituals, and social contributions, highlight how English Freemasonry blends tradition with active community engagement, resonating with the broader themes of unity, moral development, and service. Let's take a closer look at Scottish and Irish Freemasonry. These traditions place a strong emphasis on ritualistic depth and allegorical teachings, which are often rooted in local folklore and history. This not only enriches the experience, but also helps foster a unique and vibrant sense of community among members. Now, these traditions also feature distinctive degrees and customs that have evolved over time. The influences from historical events and societal changes, especially from the 18th century onward, have shaped how these practices are performed today. In terms of current practices, Scottish and Irish Freemasonry focus heavily on camaraderie and charitable work, which are core values. At the same time, they maintain traditional rituals but are also open to adapting to contemporary values and engaging with the wider community. Overall, these traditions continue to evolve while preserving their rich historical and cultural roots, making them a vital part of the broader Masonic landscape and community life. Today, we're going to explore the diverse contents of this presentation, starting with an introduction to Freemasonry itself. We'll look at how Masonic traditions vary by region, examining customs in the United Kingdom, practices across the Americas, and traditions specific to Asia and Africa. We'll also discuss the important role women play within Freemasonry, which often sparks interesting conversations. Then, we'll delve into the mysticism that surrounds Masonic symbols and rituals, highlighting how these elements contribute to the overall mystery and allure of the fraternity. To deepen our understanding, we'll compare different exoteric perspectives, exploring how Freemasonry is viewed from various cultural and philosophical angles. Finally, we'll wrap up with a conclusion that ties all these threads together, emphasizing the universal principles and unique regional expressions of Freemasonry that we've explored today. Throughout this journey, keep in mind how these diverse aspects reflect the broader theme of shared values and cultural richness within the Masonic tradition. North American customs encompass a variety of lodge structures that are often quite elaborate in design. These buildings tend to reflect the local culture, history, and of course, Masonic symbolism, creating a strong sense of place and identity. This architectural diversity helps foster a feeling of community and brotherhood among members. When it comes to community engagement, North American Freemasonry places a significant emphasis on charity, outreach programs, and forming partnerships with local organizations. These efforts are vital in building strong bonds within the community and demonstrating the positive societal impact that Freemasonry can have. Additionally, the rituals practiced within North American lodges often incorporate local symbolism and folklore. These ceremonies are more than just traditions. They emphasize core community values, spiritual growth, and the pursuit of personal enlightenment. You'll find that these unique practices help maintain a vibrant, relevant connection to local culture while promoting universal Masonic principles. Overall, these elements, lodge architecture, community involvement, and localized rituals, highlight how North American Freemasonry is deeply rooted in its community, balancing tradition with local identity to foster a meaningful brotherhood. Now, let's explore the South American variations of Freemasonry. As you can see, Masonic practices in this region are deeply shaped by a rich tapestry of indigenous traditions, colonial histories, and local customs. This blending results in unique rituals that fuse global Masonic principles with regional cultural elements, making each lodge quite distinct. When we talk about cultural influences, it's important to note that South American Freemasonry often integrates indigenous beliefs and rituals. This creates ceremonies that are not only meaningful in a Masonic context, but also deeply rooted in local culture and values, all while maintaining the core principles that define Freemasonry worldwide. Moving on to integration with local traditions, South American Freemasonry emphasizes these cultural influences heavily. You'll notice mystical elements being incorporated, and in many cases, lodges are involved in political movements, which contrasts sharply with the more traditional European practices that tend to be more reserved and historical. So, in summary, the key differences lie in how these lodges adapt and blend their rituals with local customs, creating a vibrant and dynamic Masonic experience that reflects the unique cultural landscape of South America. This regional variation highlights how Freemasonry is a living, evolving tradition that takes on different forms depending on its cultural environment, all while staying true to its fundamental principles. Now, let's take a look at the contents of this presentation. First, we'll explore an introduction to Freemasonry, understanding its origins and core principles. Then, we'll move on to Masonic traditions by region, highlighting how these customs vary around the world. Next, we'll delve into Masonic customs in the United Kingdom, discussing some of the historic rituals and practices there. Following that, we'll examine Masonic practices in the Americas, noting the unique aspects found across North and South America. Afterward, we'll look at Masonic traditions in Asia, uncovering how these practices differ or resemble those elsewhere. We'll then consider Masonic customs in Africa, exploring their specific cultural influences. Moving forward, we'll discuss the important role of women in Freemasonry, which has been evolving over time. Then, we'll explore the mysticism of Masonry, touching on its symbolic and spiritual dimensions. After that, we'll compare exoteric perspectives, looking at how Masonry is viewed from outside versus inside the fraternity. Finally, we'll wrap up with a conclusion that ties all these themes together, emphasizing the global and universal aspects of Freemasonry. Throughout this presentation, we'll see how these diverse traditions and practices contribute to a shared quest for moral development and brotherhood across cultures. Let's take a closer look at the overview of Freemasonry in Asia. Historically, Freemasonry has a rich background in this region, shaped by a variety of cultural exchanges and colonial influences. This history has led to a fascinating blend of local customs and Masonic principles, making the practice in Asia quite unique. When we consider country-specific practices, we see a wide variety across the continent. Different nations have developed their own rituals and traditions that reflect their cultural and spiritual identities. For example, in Japan and India, you can observe specific adaptations that resonate deeply with their respective historical and spiritual contexts. All of this highlights how Freemasonry in Asia is not a monolith, but a diverse tapestry of practices, shaped by history and culture. It connects directly to our overall theme of understanding how Freemasonry adapts and thrives across different parts of the world. Let's delve into the fascinating realm of mysticism and rituals within Asian Freemasonry. As you can see, symbolism plays a crucial role here, deeply rooted in local cultures and traditions. These symbols and motifs are not just decorative, they carry profound spiritual meanings that resonate with the community's beliefs. Asian Freemasonry uniquely blends traditional esoteric knowledge with indigenous cultural elements, creating a rich tapestry of rituals that emphasize harmony, strength, and enlightenment. This integration enriches the Masonic experience, making it more relevant and meaningful to local members. Moreover, the spiritual practices in Asian Freemasonry often incorporate local rituals, emphasizing respect for ancestors and spiritual harmony. These practices are often infused with mysticism and cultural heritage, which makes the ceremonies deeply personal and spiritually significant. Ultimately, this approach highlights how Freemasonry in Asia is not only about universal principles, but also about embracing and honoring local traditions, creating a unique and enriching spiritual journey for its members. Let's take a look at the contents of today's presentation. We'll start with an introduction to Freemasonry, exploring its origins and core principles. Then, we'll delve into Masonic traditions by region, highlighting how local cultures influence Masonic practices around the world. Moving forward, we'll examine Masonic customs in the United Kingdom, which is often considered the birthplace of modern Freemasonry. We'll also explore practices in the Americas, where Freemasonry has developed unique characteristics. Next, we'll look at traditions in Asia, noting how different philosophies and histories shape Masonic activities there. We'll then turn to Africa, considering how local customs intertwine with Masonic ideals. An important aspect of our discussion will be the role of women in Freemasonry, a topic that varies greatly depending on the jurisdiction. We'll also explore the mysticism of Masonry, uncovering the symbolic and spiritual dimensions that make it so intriguing. To provide a broader perspective, we'll compare exoteric perspectives, those that are outward and public, highlighting how different cultures interpret Freemasonry. Finally, we'll conclude by tying all these points together, emphasizing how Freemasonry's rich diversity reflects its universal values and enduring appeal across the globe. Let's delve into the historical context of Freemasonry in Africa. It was introduced during the colonial period, a time when European traditions met local customs. This blending created a unique fusion of ritual, community, and spiritual mysticism that is distinct to the continent. When Freemasonry was brought to Africa, it didn't just copy European practices. Instead, it adapted to the local environment. Masonic customs here often incorporate indigenous beliefs and traditions, making them deeply rooted in the cultural fabric of each community. This adaptation has allowed Freemasonry to resonate more profoundly with local members, strengthening community bonds and fostering a sense of shared identity. Core Masonic values and symbols remain, but they are expressed through a lens that reflects the rich diversity of African cultures. Ultimately, this blending of traditions highlights how Freemasonry has evolved uniquely across Africa, maintaining its universal principles while embracing local identities. This cultural fusion is a key part of understanding its role and significance on the continent. Let's explore some of the unique practices found within African Freemasonry. One of the most fascinating aspects is the ceremonial differences. In Africa, Masonic ceremonies often incorporate traditional African rituals, creating a blend of cultural heritage and Masonic principles. This fusion results in a spiritual and communal experience that is both distinctive and meaningful for members. It's a powerful way to connect traditional African identity with Masonic values. Additionally, Masonic customs in Africa place a strong emphasis on community support. This isn't just about the rituals. It's about making a real impact through philanthropy, education initiatives, and efforts to preserve local cultures. These activities help foster social cohesion, strengthen community bonds, and contribute to local development across diverse regions. Connecting this back to the overall theme, these unique practices highlight how Freemasonry in Africa is not just a set of rituals, but a living, cultural force that promotes community, supports local traditions, and adapts to the unique social fabric of the continent. Let's take a moment to look at the contents of this presentation. First, we will explore an introduction to Freemasonry, which sets the foundation for understanding this complex and fascinating organization. Then, we'll move into Masonic traditions by region, highlighting how customs and practices vary around the world. Specifically, we'll look at Masonic customs in the United Kingdom, known for its historical significance and traditional rituals. Next, we'll examine Masonic practices in the Americas, which often blend local cultures with Masonic principles. Moving on, we'll discuss Masonic traditions in Asia, showcasing how different philosophies influence their customs. We'll also review Masonic customs in Africa, where diverse cultural influences shape unique practices. An important aspect we'll cover is the role of women in Freemasonry, a topic that has evolved significantly over time and varies across regions. Another intriguing area is the mysticism of Masonry, exploring its spiritual and esoteric dimensions that often captivate those interested in its deeper meanings. We'll compare exoteric perspectives, providing a broader understanding of how Freemasonry is viewed from outside versus within the organization. Finally, we'll wrap up with a conclusion that ties all these elements together, emphasizing the universal themes and regional differences that make Freemasonry such a rich and diverse tradition. Throughout this journey, I hope to highlight how these key points connect to the overall theme of unity, tradition, and spiritual pursuit that defines Freemasonry worldwide. Let's take a look at the historical overview of women's organizations within Freemasonry. Throughout history, groups like the Order of the Eastern Star and other Masonic-affiliated organizations have played a vital role. These groups promote inclusion, emphasizing the importance of welcoming women into the Masonic community. They are also deeply committed to community service, carrying forward the traditions of Freemasonry in a way that benefits society as a whole. Women in Freemasonry have made significant contributions, not only through leadership roles, but also through charitable initiatives that support various causes. Their efforts help promote equality within the Masonic tradition, enriching its history and expanding its influence around the world. Overall, these women's organizations highlight the evolving nature of Freemasonry, showing how it continues to grow and adapt by embracing diverse members and fostering meaningful contributions. This history underscores the importance of inclusion, service, and leadership, core values that resonate deeply within the broader Masonic tradition. Now, let's take a look at current practices worldwide regarding inclusion and exclusivity in Freemasonry. As you can see, there's a significant push towards promoting inclusion, especially when it comes to women. Historically, Freemasonry has been quite exclusive, but today, many jurisdictions are challenging that tradition. Women in Freemasonry are actively involved, and this has led to the development of co-masonry and independent female lodges. These initiatives aim to create a more diverse and equitable environment within the Masonic framework. Globally, women participate in Freemasonry in various ways. In some countries, women have established their own lodges, which operate alongside or independently from male lodges. In others, the tradition remains more exclusive, with membership still limited to men. This diversity reflects different cultural and historical practices, but overall, it shows a clear trend toward greater inclusion. Connecting this to our overall theme, it's important to recognize how these evolving practices contribute to the broader understanding of Freemasonry as a progressive and adaptable tradition. It's about balancing respect for tradition with the need for inclusivity in today's world. Let's take a moment to look at the contents of this presentation. We'll start with an introduction to Freemasonry, giving a broad overview of its origins and foundational principles. Then, we'll explore how Masonic traditions vary by region, highlighting the diverse ways in which Freemasonry is practiced around the world. Moving on, we'll examine the specific Masonic customs in the United Kingdom, which is often considered the birthplace of many traditions. Next, we'll look at practices in the Americas, where Freemasonry has evolved uniquely with local influences. We'll also delve into traditions in Asia, showcasing how Masonic ideas have been adapted across different cultures. Then, we'll consider Masonic customs in Africa, which often blend local traditions with universal principles. An important part of our discussion is the role of women in Freemasonry, which varies considerably, but is increasingly recognized as vital to the movement's growth. We'll also explore the mysticism of Masonry, revealing some of its symbolic and spiritual dimensions that add depth to its practices. Following that, we'll compare exoteric perspectives, those more outward and public, highlighting how Freemasonry is viewed from different angles. Finally, we'll wrap up with a conclusion that ties everything together, emphasizing the shared values and regional differences that make Freemasonry a truly global phenomenon. Throughout this journey, remember that these topics connect to the broader theme of understanding the rich complexity and universal appeal of Freemasonry. Understanding Masonic mysticism is a fascinating journey into the deeper layers of symbolism and philosophy that shape this tradition. On this slide, we focus on the role of symbolism, which in Freemasonry acts as a powerful language of allegories. These symbols are not just decorative. They carry moral lessons and spiritual truths that guide members along their mystical journey. They serve as a profound way to communicate complex ideas about enlightenment and personal transformation in a way that's both accessible and meaningful. Now, moving to the philosophical underpinnings, Masonic mysticism seamlessly intertwines philosophy with symbolism. This combination emphasizes self-discovery and moral development, encouraging members to reflect on their inner selves. Through rituals and allegorical teachings, Freemasonry invites us to pursue spiritual enlightenment. It's about more than just rituals. It's about a personal quest for truth and understanding. When we connect these points to the overall theme, it becomes clear that at the heart of Freemasonry is a spiritual journey, one that uses symbolic language and philosophical principles to help members grow, evolve, and seek a higher understanding of themselves and the universe. Now, let's explore the significance of rituals across different cultures and their deeper meaning. Many countries share common rituals that, while they may look different on the surface, often serve similar spiritual and social purposes. For example, in Freemasonry, we see rituals like the opening and closing of lodges, as well as initiation ceremonies, which are central to the practice. These rituals often incorporate symbols such as the square and compass, which represent core values like brotherhood, moral integrity, and enlightenment. What's fascinating is that these rituals are not just formalities. They symbolize the spiritual journey each member embarks on. They guide individuals through processes of self-discovery, moral growth, and enlightenment, fostering a profound connection to the mystical aspects of life and the universe. So, whether in Freemasonry or other traditions, rituals serve as a bridge, connecting us to higher ideals and universal truths. Now, let's take a closer look at the contents of this presentation. We'll start with an introduction to Freemasonry itself, exploring its origins and fundamental principles. Then, we'll examine how Masonic traditions vary around the world by region, highlighting the diversity within this ancient fraternity. Moving on, we'll focus on Masonic customs in the United Kingdom, which is historically significant as the birthplace of many modern practices. Next, we'll delve into Masonic practices in the Americas, noting unique rituals and organizational structures. After that, we'll look at traditions in Asia, where Freemasonry has adapted to different cultural contexts. We'll also explore Masonic customs in Africa, observing how local customs influence Masonic ceremonies. An important aspect of our discussion will be the role of women in Freemasonry, which varies greatly across different regions and lodges. Then, we'll consider the mysticism of Masonry, exploring its spiritual and symbolic dimensions. We'll also compare exoteric perspectives, looking at how different cultures and philosophies interpret Masonry outwardly. Finally, we'll wrap up with a conclusion that ties all these aspects together, emphasizing the universal themes and regional differences that make Freemasonry such a fascinating and complex tradition. When we look at the similarities and differences within Freemasonry, we see some fascinating patterns. For example, many ritual elements are quite consistent across different lodges and traditions. These include the use of symbolic tools, which represent moral lessons, as well as initiation ceremonies that welcome new members into the fraternity. Additionally, moral teachings are a core part of what Freemasonry emphasizes, guiding members to lead ethical and upright lives. However, it's important to recognize that while these elements are shared, the way they are interpreted and practiced can vary widely depending on cultural context. Different regions and traditions may have unique rituals or emphasize certain symbols differently, which enriches the tapestry of Freemasonry around the world. On the other hand, when we consider practice and belief, we see a remarkable diversity. Rituals and symbols are often adapted to reflect local cultural influences, making each lodge feel distinct. Yet, despite these variations, the fundamental principles remain constant. Brotherhood and moral conduct are the universal pillars that connect all Freemasons, regardless of where they are or how they practice. In essence, this balance of shared core principles and cultural diversity highlights the universal appeal of Freemasonry. It's a global fraternity that respects local traditions while maintaining a common moral foundation, fitting perfectly into our overall understanding of its enduring appeal and significance. When we look at the impact on members, one of the key aspects is how Freemasonry fosters a strong sense of identity and belonging. It's really about creating a community where diverse individuals come together through shared values and rituals. These shared experiences help build a sense of connection that goes beyond just the surface. It's about personal growth, but also about supporting each other collectively. Now, moving to the idea of a global brotherhood, this is where Freemasonry really stands out. It transcends cultural boundaries, bringing people from all over the world into a unified network. This promotes not just unity and mutual support, but also a deep sense of shared purpose and values. It's about creating interpersonal connections that truly span continents, making members feel part of something much larger than themselves. In essence, these elements, identity, belonging, and brotherhood, not only strengthen individual members, but also reinforce the overall theme of Freemasonry as a unifying force that promotes personal and collective growth worldwide. Let's take a moment to look over the contents of this slide. We start with an introduction to Freemasonry, giving a foundation for understanding what this ancient and widespread fraternity is all about. Then, we explore Masonic traditions by region, highlighting how customs and rituals can vary around the world. Moving into specifics, we examine Masonic customs in the United Kingdom, which is often considered the birthplace of modern Freemasonry, and then the practices in the Americas, where there's a rich diversity influenced by different cultures. We also look at traditions in Asia, a region with unique approaches and historical contexts, and then turn to Africa, which has its own distinctive Masonic expressions. Next, we consider the role of women in Freemasonry, an area of ongoing evolution and debate, as women's participation varies across different jurisdictions. We then delve into the mysticism of Masonry, its symbols, philosophies, and spiritual aspects that often inspire members beyond the surface level. Following that, we compare exoteric perspectives, meaning the outward, more visible aspects of Freemasonry, across different cultures and regions to better understand its universal and diverse elements. Finally, we arrive at the conclusion, tying all these threads together. Throughout this presentation, our goal has been to shed light on the complexity and richness of Freemasonry, emphasizing how tradition, culture, and philosophy intertwine to create a global, yet uniquely local fraternity. As we come to the final part of our presentation, let's take a moment to summarize the key findings. Freemasonry, as we've seen, showcases a remarkable diversity in practices around the world. Different cultures have developed their own unique traditions, beliefs, and rituals, which all contribute to a rich and varied global Masonic tapestry. This diversity highlights how adaptable and multifaceted Freemasonry truly is, reflecting local values while maintaining a shared sense of brotherhood. Moving on, an important aspect that unites many Masonic traditions is mysticism. About 24% of the practices emphasize mystical themes, which serve as a central thread connecting members worldwide. These mystical elements foster a sense of unity through shared symbols, rituals, and philosophical explorations, helping members find common ground in their pursuit of enlightenment. It's fascinating to see how these spiritual themes act as a bridge, bringing together diverse cultures under a common quest for deeper understanding. And lastly, I want to touch on the achievement report. The achievement rate, which indicates the level of progress or success in these practices, shows that despite the diversity, there's a consistent commitment to growth and development across different traditions. This overall commitment underscores the importance of continuous learning and shared purpose within Freemasonry. So, in summary, what we see is a vibrant, diverse, and spiritually unified global community, each practice unique, but connected through shared symbols and values. It's this balance of diversity and unity that truly defines the essence of Freemasonry worldwide. Now, let's look at the future of Freemasonry. As we see, it is continuously evolving to embrace modern values. This means fostering greater inclusivity and adapting to societal changes, all while still holding onto its core traditions. The goal here is to stay relevant in a rapidly changing world without losing the essence of what makes Freemasonry special. Moving forward, the organization's ability to adapt and its ongoing commitment to philanthropy are key factors in maintaining its relevance. These efforts help build strong community bonds and support personal growth. At the same time, Freemasonry continues to embrace modern societal values and face new challenges head-on. All in all, these developments ensure that Freemasonry remains a meaningful and vibrant part of society, connecting tradition with progress and fostering a sense of unity and purpose for generations to come. Thank you for your attention throughout this presentation. As we conclude with the Masonic audiobook library, I want to emphasize how this project represents a significant step in preserving and sharing our rich traditions. The date, August 1st, 2025, marks a milestone for us in making these valuable resources accessible to a wider audience. I appreciate your interest and support in this initiative. Thanks again for being part of this journey.